He used to sit on the same old bench every evening, the one at the quiet edge of the small park where almost no one really stopped. It wasn't special in any way. The paint was faded, one corner slightly cracked, but to him it felt like the only place in the world where he could breathe properly. No loud voices, no forced smiles, no pressure to act normal. Just him, the soft wind moving through the trees, and the distant sound of children laughing like it belonged to another life. He wasn't always like this. There was a time when he tried. Really did. He tried to laugh at the right moments, to join conversations, to stand in groups where he never quite knew where to place his hands. But somehow, everything always felt a little off. Words came late. Or not, people moved on quickly, and he stayed behind in silence. Slowly, without even noticing, he stopped trying to catch up. Silence became easier than disappointment. That evening felt like any other at first. The sky was soft, turning warm shades of orange and pink, like it was quietly ending something without making a sound. He sat on the bench, with his head slightly lowered, tracing invisible lines in the dirt with the tip of his shoe. His thoughts were heavy, but familiar, the kind he had learned to carry without question. He didn't notice her at first. A voice suddenly broke his silence. "Do you always sit here like this?" He flinched slightly and looked up slowly, unsure if she was even talking to him. A girl was standing in front of him, calm and steady, with an expression that didn't judge him. He didn't answer her, but she didn't seem bothered. Instead, she nodded lightly and said, "Okay, I'll take that as a yes." And then she sat down on the other side of the bench like it was completely normal. She placed a small bag beside her carefully, as if even the bench mattered. He shifted a little, uncomfortable at first. Then she asked, "You don't talk much, do you?" He shook his head, and she smiled softly, saying, "That's fine. I talk enough for two people anyway." For a moment, there was silence, but it didn't feel heavy like before. Then she opened her bag and showed him something simple and asked, "Do you know how to play this?" Eluke Dadit shook his head again, and she smiled brighter. "Perfect. Then I get to teach you," she said. He almost refused, but something about her made him stay. She began explaining slowly, patiently, without rushing him or making him feel small. Every mistake he made was met with a soft laugh and gentle correction. "See? It's not that hard. You're already getting better," she said. He didn't believe her at first, but slowly his focus improved, and for the first time in a long while, his mind felt quiet instead of heavy. When they finished, the sky had darkened. She stood up and said, "I come here every day, same time. You should come to..." Then she walked away, leaving him sitting there alone. He stayed for a long time, staring at the empty space where she had been, feeling something strange he couldn't explain. The next day, he came back again, telling himself it was just habit, but deep down, he knew he was hoping she would be there. And se was. She waved as soon as she saw him and said, "Right on time." From that day, it became a routine. She came every day with her small bag, sat beside him, and talked about random things. Sometimes the game, sometimes life, sometimes nothing important at all. He didn't talk much, only small replies, but she noticed every little change. Days turned into weeks, and slowly something inside him started to change. He began noticing small things again: the wind, the leaves, the colors of the sky. The world didn't feel so distant anymore. But sometimes she would go quiet, sometimes tired, and a few times she didn't come at all. Those days felt strange and heavy, but when she returned, she would smile and act normal, saying, "Missed me," and he would say nothing, though a silence said enough. One evening, she looked at him and said, "You're not the same anymore. You used to look like you were carrying something heavy. Now it feels lighter." He didn't know what to say. She smiled and said, "That's good. It means you're learning." When he asked learning what, she simply said, "How to stay." The days continued normally after that, until one evening he arrived at the park and found the bench empty. He sat down and waited. Minutes passed, then more minutes, but she didn't come. The sky changed colors, the air grew colder, and people came and went, but she never arrived. He told himself she was just late, then told himself she would come soon, but slowly even those thoughts faded. He stayed anyway, holding the small piece she had once left behind, turning it in his fingers, until the park became silent and the night fully arrived. And for the first time, The empty bench felt heavier than ever, as he realized something he couldn't yet accept, that some waiting changes into something that never gets answered. The next day, he went back to the park earlier than usual. He didn't tell himself why, and he didn't want to admit what he was really feeling. But his steps were faster than normal, and his eyes kept searching the path even before he reached the bench. When he arrived, it was empty again. He sat down slowly, trying to ignore the strange pressure building in his chest. He kept telling himself she was just late, that she would come walking in any moment like before, smiling and saying something random as if nothing had changed. He waited. A few children ran past, laughing. A couple walked by, talking softly, and the wind moved through the trees above him. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Minutes slowly turned into an hour, and his eyes kept returning to the same direction she used to come from. Every time someone appeared in the distance, his heart reacted for a moment, then sank again when it wasn't her. As the sky started to shift toward evening, an unfamiliar restlessness grew inside him. He wasn't used to waiting like this, because before her, he had never really waited for anyone at all. Finally, he stood up. For a moment, he hesitated, then started walking around the park. First slowly and then faster. He checked the places where she used to stand, the paths she liked, even the quiet corners near the trees. But there was no sign of her anywhere. He returned to the bench and sat down again, but this time he didn't stay long. The next day he came again, and then the next, and the next. But each time the result was the same. The bench that once felt peaceful now felt too quiet, and the air that once felt light now felt heavy. He stopped bringing the game pieces because it felt pointless without her. Days slowly turned into a week, and people began noticing him sitting there alone, staring at nothing for long stretches of time. But no one ever asked him anything, and even if they had, he wouldn't have known how to explain what he was feeling. One evening, just as he was about to leave, something small near the edge of the bench caught his eye. It was a folded piece of paper, easy to miss, and for a moment his heart stopped as he reached for it carefully, as if it might disappear if he moved too quickly. He held it for a few seconds before opening it, his hands slightly shaky. The writing was simple and immediately familiar. The first line made his breath catch. "I knew you would keep coming back here." It was her. His eyes moved quickly to the next line. "I'm sorry, I couldn't say goodbye properly." His chest tightened as he kept reading, feeling like each word was pulling something deeper out of him. She wrote that sometimes life doesn't give a chance to finish things the way we want, but she didn't want to leave without saying something important. He sat down again without realizing it, holding the paper tighter. She wrote that he thought she was teaching him a game, but that was never the real lesson. The real lesson, she said, was about staying, about showing up, about not running away from small moments that actually matter. She reminded him how he used to sit there like he wanted to disappear, but he didn't disappear. He stayed, and that mattered more than he understood. His vision blurred slightly as he kept reading, his breathing uneven. As she wrote that if she wasn't there one day, it didn't mean the story was over. It just meant it was his turn to continue it. The final lines told him to teach someone else, to sit with someone who felt alone, to stay for others the way he once stayed for her, and that in doing so, he would understand everything. The last line simply said she was really glad she met him. After that, there was nothing else. No explanation, no details, no answers, just silence on paper. He sat there for a long time after finishing it. The park slowly grew empty again. The sky turned darker, and the air became colder, but he didn't move. For the first time, he wasn't waiting for her to come back. He was trying to understand what she had left behind. The days after that felt different. He still went to the park, but something inside him had changed. The waiting was gone, replaced by something quieter and heavier, something like memory mixed with understanding. Slowly, he started noticing things again. The same things she used to notice: the movement of leaves, the changing light, the small details of life that made everything feel alive. But now they didn't feel new. They felt meaningful in a different way. One evening, while sitting on the bench, he noticed a younger kid standing nearby, looking unsure, shifting nervously, like he wanted to sit but didn't know if he should. For a moment, he just watched, and it reminded him of himself. Something inside him moved quietly. Without thinking too much, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the game piece he had kept all this time. He looked at it for a moment, then turned to the kid and asked softly if he knew how to play. The kid shook his head. There was a brief silence. Then he nodded and said, Good. Moving slightly to make space on the bench. I can teach you. The kid hesitated for a moment, then slowly sat down. He placed the pieces between them, just like she once did. At first, his voice felt uncertain, but he continued anyway, explaining slowly, repeating when needed, guiding without rushing. The kid made mistakes, but he didn't mind them. Instead, he smiled slightly and showed him again, calmly, patiently, the way she once showed him. As they continued, something inside him shifted. The same calm focus returned. The same quiet feeling settled in, but this time it felt different. It felt like continuation. The sky changed color again, just like before. But this time, he wasn't looking at the path anymore. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He was simply there, fully present. When the game ended, the kid asked if he would come again tomorrow. He paused for a moment, then nodded and said yes. Same time. The kid ran off happily, and he stayed on the bench a little longer, looking at the empty space beside him. It was still empty, but it no longer felt like loss. It felt like something had been passed forward instead of taken away. He touched the folded paper in his pocket once more, then looked ahead at the park where everything had begun. A soft breath left him, and for the first time, he truly understood that she hadn't left to disappear. She had left to be continued.